20% of learners with special needs and 19% of learners that qualify for learner transport do not receive assistance. I think it's time that the government decides where this function should be, Department of Basic Education or Transport. Learners that qualify for transport should receive support from government. Minister, like the payment of norms and standards for school funding, this only remains a paper budget, nothing more. Minister, the learners and parents of South Africa deserves an apology from you. You are failing them. Your department is failing them. You hide behind moving goalposts and skewed statistics while generations of children suffer and die under your ineptitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. And Honorable Yabo, we've added a minute, so you have 12 minutes.
Honorable Chair, let me greet the Honorable Minister as well, Deputy Minister, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, honorable members. Good afternoon. Now, we are often misled by opposition parties who seek to propagate falsehoods when they shout nothing has changed since the advent of our constitutional democracy. They choose to focus on the backlog that the ANC-led democratic government inherited and has political will to address, be it infrastructure, which is critical for schooling, or they choose incidents which have impacted government programs as reasons of their perennial shout. Nothing has changed since 1994. There are those who want us to erase 342 years of colonial rule because it serves their interests. They want to truncate a history that was built over 342 years into 29 years. Now, if we were to do a comparative analysis by scientific means on what it would mean in budgetary terms to entrench a draconian system, and we discount 30 years, let's discount 30 years from the 342 and say that 30 years was the time it took from when the ships landed on our shores to the entrenchment of a colonial system. If we account for each annual budget in that context, to truncate the value of such in 29 years is unfeasible to imagine that you can roll back such a history. It's unfeasible. Firstly, the democratic dispensation in itself is a fundamental change from a system of apartheid colonialism, which was advanced by the predecessors of the members on the left. Secondly, government has expanded access to basic education, which has become free. And we all know that our rural and township schools today produce top achievers, which was not the case pre-1994. In simple terms, before 1994, apartheid Bantu education did not provide resources and the education curriculum to empower Black communities, instead choosing to give them substandard education to keep them as fodder for the exploitative labor market system of the white elites. The Free State province is one example of a rural province which has surpassed both Gauteng and the Western Cape in matriculant performance, even at the district level. We salute the late MEC Ntate Tate Maagwe for pioneering this significant change. Re a leboha. We wonder why the opposition don't shout their narrative to their own. The Western Cape is the best governed province, despite the fact that it has registered a decline in matriculant performance relative to the ANC land, Free State, and Gauteng. As it stands, the Western Cape sits at number 4. As it stands, the DA in the Western Cape stands at number 4 in terms of matric results. Now, numbers don't lie. Thirdly, they will not speak of the curriculum transformation from Bantu education to the current national curriculum and policy statement, known as CAPS, which has opened possibilities for the African child to be a scientist, a pilot, an engineer, a doctor, and other professions which their apartheid rule deprived us of. Fourthly, inclusive of the populist EFF, they will not speak truth to the people that this ANC government has taken bold steps through making education priority number 1, and has thus prioritized protecting vulnerable children through the provision of much needed learner scholar transport. The Scholar Transport Program transports over 700,000 learners who would otherwise have to walk long distances to attend school, exposing them to several safety risks. And lastly, the ANC government has introduced a national school nutrition program which protects 9.6 million vulnerable children who experience poverty by providing healthy meals in schools. We are pleased to also report that the program has begun introducing breakfast in various provinces. Niyaqhuba, Minister. Coincidentally, during the pandemic, the DA ran to court to get an order for these meals to be provided during lockdown, which the ANC government was providing. In any case, at least the ANC government policies, which they have to implement in the Western Cape, have brought a sense of Ubuntu in the opposition benches, despite them doing so for purely electioneering purposes. Recently, the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education experienced supplier challenges impacting children in various schools. We are the first to admit that the impact of these challenges was far-reaching. Honorable Minister, we welcome your swift deployment of national officials to support and resolve the problem faced by the provincial department. Where wrongdoing is found, heads must roll without prejudice, because the problem faced by learners in KwaZulu-Natal undermines our policies as the ANC. We are confident that your ministry will continue to support provinces to ensure that we defend our democratic gains. In essence, the shout by the DA that nothing has changed since 1994 is a reflection of their longing for an apartheid-style governance system which preserved the dominance of white minority, as is the case in the Democratic Alliance. As we can see, one raisin amongst many peanuts in the national leadership. They do not recognize the democratic gains because for them, a system led by Blacks in general and Africans in particular is bound to fail. Hence, they can never acknowledge the progress we have made as a nation. It is this reason that they continue to use all Black DA leaders to shout on their behalf, as we are witnessing, and fire them the day they begin to undermine white supremacy. I want to welcome the inputs made by Honorable Boshoff. We may disagree on ideological outlook, but you educated the House thoroughly, especially on the 30% misinformation pass rate that others carry all the way through to media houses on a daily basis as a harbinger of what is to happen in the following year's elections. You are going to be disappointed. Honorable Minister, as the African National Congress, we are concerned about the various social challenges affecting our schools. The reported violence, bullying, and cases of sexual harassment, and the levels of pregnancies are concerns we should address post-haste. We must educate our children of these social ills at a young age, as this generation is different because of its access to the internet and various social media platforms which influence them. The problem is a social problem which requires the family, guardians, and the entire community to embed the social values which protect the rights of children. We call on the department to strengthen the capacity of the South African Council of Educators to effectively deal with sexual harassment cases. Our communities and the school governing bodies should take interest in these matters and respond timeously on allegations raised. It is as a government of the people, we should also prioritize providing sanitary towels for the girl child. The girl child is vulnerable and we should heighten campaigns and programs which focus on creating awareness for the girl child. We should equally have programs which target the boy child to learn values which negate patriarchal society tendencies, which breed sexism. It is also urgent that we undertake nation-building programs at the level of schools to engender social cohesion and nurturing patriots who subscribe to the values of Ubuntu, non-racialism, non-sexism, equality, and share a common national identity and a common patrimony built upon respect for and protection of human rights and dignity. I thank you.
Thank you. We call on the Honorable Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Motseka. And you have 9 minutes, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair. And let me also thank the members for the engaged participation in the debate. And one, Chair, and I always say that I refuse to be made to, when people start jumping Western Cape children are South African children. So we are not going to be alienated from them as if Western Cape carries other people's children. They are children like all other children, and we're not going to be comparing them with other kids to say other kids in other provinces in terms of meds, KZN is leading in terms of past. They're South African kids. And just, I think, disabuse yourselves on this Western Cape story. And sometimes, what is unfortunate, Chair, sometimes instead of looking forward to alternative policy views, we are forced to sit through empty noises, engaging with opposition, and just be tortured because you are forced to sit through, as I say, noises that you don't know where it's leading to. People debating about rumors, hearsay, unwilling to listen to things that are being said, not contributing meaningfully to debates on a very important endeavor such as education. Because what you look for when you engage with people who have a different view is to get a different perspective that enriches your view. Remember not that I have, and he does it without failure. He's stuck in toilets. Ask him to debate, he's in the toilet. And you really look forward to say, this is your official opposition. They must have researchers. They must be talking something alternative. They'll be talking about local government tenders, which have no bearing to the debate at hand. And this is a parliamentary debate on the education budget. So that it would be very helpful to really talk about and really benefit from engagements, which I must admit that in some instances, you find them very helpful, you take notes and you go and inform the work that you do. For instance, I mean, there's been exciting reports on pills, and I thought as members or South Africans talking about education, we'll try to even understand what this thing is all about. And I really want to agree, and I'm very grateful to Member Boshoff to say, at some stage, let truth be told. Reading for meaning is not oral performance. And even if you say to people, linking symbols that M-A-N means man is not reading, to say man is going is not reading for meaning, it's something which is very highly cognitive, very complex, which we even analyze with neuroscientists to say what happens in the wiring of a child's brain or a person's brain when they read. It's a very sophisticated exercise. And I agree with him that what is very helpful for us as South Africa is to unpack, to say, what does it mean in our journey for development? For instance, Chair, I agree with you. The importance of mother tongue instruction, you can't underestimate, because PILS also confirms it. It confirms that when kids learn in the language, they are comfortable, not because they understand the language. Their brain cells are relaxed, they are happier, and therefore they're able to process information, which is the case for mother tongue instruction. So which means we have to accept as a country that indeed we have to promote African languages to make sure that the majority of learners who are not studying in African languages are being taught in their language. You also have to agree again, Chair, that, and also agree again with members, to say, and agree, perhaps accept the guilt that there's been an overemphasis of English. The Eastern Cape conducted a very comprehensive study on mother tongue instruction, and the results were very encouraging. Children who were taught in Xhosa performed better in maths, performed better in science, even in English nogal, that their English performance was even better, because a language is not just for a combination of words, but it's also an instrument through which you are able to process information. And that's why in PILS, when you study PILS, you also find that isiXhosa performed better than other African languages. So the member is right that kids were exposed also, or were expected to be assessed in a language whose symbols they've not used in the past. So we must say, I think in order, comrade, comrade, member, Uguti, really, we have to agree that we have to promote the teaching of African languages and promote them as languages of learning. For instance, PILS, amongst others, indicate that, for instance, in Setswana and Xhosa, the performance is low, and we have to investigate to say, why is performance in Zulu and in Xhosa doing very well? What is it, what is different about those languages? And moving forward, I think it should be very helpful to make sure that these Bennies and Betties here come down and we talk with them as Tebo and Rato to say, what is it that we're doing to take forward our children? What is also very important also about the relevance of PILS is that, Member Boshoff, that you also raise also, which I also say, it's not about pronunciation, enunciation, and attitude in speaking languages. It's to be able to get clear ability to demonstrate logical thinking, coherence, associations, and operating at a high cognitive level. And sometimes listening here, I can see that most of us will even have failed with in the PILS exam. There's no coherence, there's no logic. So if we're all supposed to write the PILS, guess because there's just no coherence that you really hear. So I read even the concept of 30%. I just think also people are running around even talking things that are not there. I don't want to remember Imran because I'm going to run out of time. The question of infrastructure. Indeed, as a minister from a big department, I sit in the committee of ministers with budget. I know exactly how much the state collects, and I know I can only give it to treasury, not to parliament. They're the only people who can give me money. But sitting on the Mincom bud, I know that for infrastructure, we need about 100 billion. And sitting on the Mincom bud, I know that it's not possible to have it now. So it's to say, what else do we do in the meantime? So we're a developing country. We don't have lots of money and lots of other things. So I think it would be very helpful, and I really ask with all humility and respect that, and I'm not saying people should not do it in a member because that when we come here, it's governing bodies and other things. Let's talk about the debate. At some stage, as fellow South Africans, let's talk about high level educational matters. Let's hear what is your perspective. And I promise you, we will always respect, helpful. I'm telling you. And the other matters, there's a member also from the IPO had said certificate this and that. That's an administrative matter. Sissy, just give me the name of the person. I promise you tomorrow I'll tell you where the certificate is. If there's anything that we're efficient with, it's in the exam section. So don't worry about it. So I'm really grateful that we really have had the opportunity to debate and want to repeat. Our kids can read. They can combine M and A to mean man, but very many of them, like many of us here, are not able to operate at a cognitive level where we're coherent, we're systematic, we can make references, and that's why they're not passing. And instead of being condemned, Chair, I think we should be commended as this government for being a courageous government. We are the only 3 countries in the continent that participate in PILS. The question is why? Why have other people run away from PILS? It was Morocco, Egypt, and ourselves. As a party
Thank you, Minister. Your time is
that had
expired.
for liberation will fight also in PILS, and we're going to succeed.
Thank you. I just want to speak to the point raised by the DA Whip. According to the rules, the 9th edition of the Rules of the National Assembly, 64D, it is indeed an established convention for members not to cross the floor during a sitting. We note that your intention was collegial, but we wish to caution you not to do that again. Thank you. Members are reminded that the debate on correctional service budget vote will take place in this chamber, the Good Hope Chamber, at 16:15. That concludes the debate and the business of the day of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.
Recording stopped.